Hello there, friends and lovers. And it's a new year. Thank you for joining us. This is 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir.
Yay, Happy New Year, everybody.
And you in 2026. Folks, thank you. Thank you so much for being here tonight, or if you're listening afterward, for listening in. I, more than Amy, but under the weather last week. And, kind of a disappointment. I always like doing the big New Year's show, but just going to have to be tonight. And so we're glad that you are here on this fine January 4th, 2026, as we celebrate a happy year, the year of selfishness. It's going around. It's going around on social media. Some people are saying, this is the year of selfishness. This is the year I'm going to take care of me. You get that kind of thing every now and then through New Year's resolutions. Anyway, but this year it's fun to see it go viral.
Yeah, I'm seeing that more as well. So that's good. I just hope that people understand that selfishness is not cynical egoism. And that they need to rationally choose their values and use reason.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that. I'm saying it's mostly good.
Good.
It's not super philosophical. It's not that everybody's cracked open a copy of The Fountainhead and say, I want to be Howard Rourke when I grow up this year. No, it's more along the lines of, put on your own oxygen mask before you attempt to assist others. Kind of common sense selfishness, but it's good. It's a good thing, and it is good to see online. Again, today is Sunday, January 4th, 2026, the 4th day of this your best year yet.
Wow, 4 days already.
If we're going to do viral self-interest, it is going to be your best year yet. 361 days. A big bowl of 361 delicious days to make this an outstanding year. Christmas is in only 355 days.
Well, Halloween is what, $299 or $298?
300.
Is it
300
just
days?
Okay, 300.
Well,
all right.
According to Dr. Google, Professor Google.
Very good. Just 300 days.
I was going to count them out and make sure it was right, but I trusted Dr. Google.
That's in 3 months, right? 300 days?
It's real soon. It's yeah. 41 days until Valentine's Day. I always like to look ahead because I tend to be a last-minute seat-of-the-pants kind of guy, and it's good to say, no, maybe I should think about these things before they happen. So, 41 days until Valentine's Day, and on this date, I'm going to tie everything to the news over the last week. We don't do as much news usually as we're going to do today, but given the new year and all the stuff going on, I want to make sure we set this, for my own sake, set this up for the correct amount of realism and optimism. On this date, LBJ and the Great Society. What do you mean the Great Society? Is that something like the warmth of collectivism? On January 4th, 1965, Lyndon Baines Johnson lays out for Congress a laundry list of legislation needed to achieve his plans for the Great Society.
Oof.
Yeah, he started the war on poverty, and like all government wars on whatever, you can imagine how well that went. That was 1965, leading us to the late 60s and the hippie generation. Peace, love, and smile on your brother.
Should I can I insert something that I wrote on Facebook?
Yes,
recently?
Please.
So this is about, let's see, one of our friends. He put together a picture of Mom Donnie, and the quote that's been going around, quote, "We will replace the frigidity, like the coldness of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism." Yuck, barf. Okay, so anyway, that's what
Mom Donnie said. Yes.
Mom Donnie has said recently.
Don't mess with the Zoran.
So I explained it in a kind of a Joe Q public sort of way, so we've got our Great Lakes Objectivists. This is a game we need to start playing a little bit more often, which is basically putting concepts into a hat, pulling one out, like epistemology or primacy of consciousness or whatever it may be, or unit measurement, and saying, okay, take this objectivist concept or this philosophical concept and find somebody on the street, bring them in, and explain this to them. Explain it to Joe Q public, and see if you can't explain it in layman's terms. Try to get down to possibly an area where there's some commonality in what they understand, and go from there. So that's what I tried to do. So anyway, so this is what I said in response. I said, warmth, happiness, and security must come from within and out through your own hands as an individual. No top-down utopia can deliver any of this to you. If someone with political power, like Mamdani, tries to force you into the good life, or who was the president you were talking about with the Great Society?
LBJ.
Lyndon
Johnson.
Yeah, Lyndon Johnson. Tries to force you into the good life. Only misery will result, as we have seen time and again when rulers rip away economic freedom. There are no shortcuts to a good life. You must build your own as an individual. No one will hand it to you, no matter how entitled you feel. Yes, you can collaborate with other like-minded individuals, but you will need to use your own thought process to find people who are of value to you. There is nothing collectivist about living as a human being. You must choose to live the life you want, and you must have the freedom to do so. Don't allow any politician to tell you otherwise. I hope New York City doesn't suffer too much from this con man. So that was my response to that.
Why do they believe the con?
Well, I think it's because they don't think too well, or they don't think too much about philosophy or politics or concepts like individualism versus collectivism. And when they think of collectivism, they think of family. They think of, your community coming together and embracing you. You are in, trouble financially with your family, or you're a widow or widower, and you need to reach out to your community, to your churches, to your Social Security, whatever, or to your politicians and ask them for help. You can do that with people who choose to help you. It's not fair, and it's abusive to reach out to politicians who will basically rip money away from other people to help you. That is not fair. That is actually very abusive and very, should I dare say, frigid and cold.
Yes. The point is, people believe this stuff.
Yeah.
They actually believe it, and it sounds warm and fuzzy, There's no I in team. I always think every time somebody says that, all the individuals should just leave, because there is no I. Now, the point is, yeah, sure, we work together, we trade, we cooperate, we communicate, we do things as groups. So LBJ, 1965, the Great Society, more harm than good without a doubt. 30 years later, it takes 30 years. 30 years later, 1995, some of you will be old enough to remember this. Some of you will be able to remember those 30 years between Johnson and 1995, when the Republican Party takes control of Congress for the first time in 40 years. Now, I was not yet 40 years old when that happened, so I never in my lifetime had seen Republican majorities in the House and Senate in the United States. Nowadays, we're kind of used to, kind of back into the back and forth. For a while, the left runs things. For a while, the right runs things. Those of us who are neither left nor right say, okay, the a-holes are still running things. But it was a very big deal in 95. Republicans take control of Congress. It just tells you how deep, not just politically, but philosophically, this acceptance of collectivism goes. And I'll have something to say about the acceptance of collectivism on the right as we go a little bit further.
So much acceptance on the right.
Yes. One more on this date. 2007, 22 years later, Nancy Pelosi becomes the first female Speaker of the House. How did that not happen until the 2000s? Well, Kamala Harris was the first female vice president. she was also the first African-American vice president and the first Asian-American vice president. And none of that matters except, sure, but why the hell hadn't it happened before? I guess to some people it did matter, didn't it? In any event, I want to see, once, MAGA is just a bad memory and we get back to the normal kind of lousy milquetoast Republicans that we used to have and that the current ones actually make me miss. Once that happens, I want to see. Because we have had great black leaders in they have had great black leaders in the Republican Party, and they should again. People like Condoleezza Rice were amazing. She would have been a better president than any of the presidents that we've had since then. I want to see that happen. But that's enough on this date. Real quick for birthdays, it is the birth date of Isaac Newton, the great mathematician and scientist. And I mention that because we always celebrate Isaac Newton's birthday on December 25th. But that's actually going by the old calendar. And by the current calendar, his birthday is today. So happy birthday, Isaac Newton.
Aww.
And if we can do some calendar tricks in order to celebrate this guy twice, well, the other guy they celebrate on December 25th, also, if he existed at all by the given records, he wasn't born on the 25th either. So happy birthday, Isaac Newton. It's also Michael Stipe's birthday, if you're an REM fan out there.
Wow.
And I always say the best REM songs are not the most popular, but the happier ones. Songs like Canned and End of the World as We Know It, the cheerful stuff.
My favorite are not necessarily cheerful, but it's Driver 8, and which is a great great line. God dang it all, such a good, catchy tune. And also Lower Wolves, which is not a very popular song by them, but it's a great song. Yes.
Steve in the chat, the great Stephen Katz in the chat, says, was 1995 the year Lopez was decided? The Supreme Court finally put limits to Congress's power under the Commerce Clause. And Steve, being our resident lawyer and expert on law and immigration law in particular, will often ask these questions that would require research on my part. So somebody who knows more about the law and precedent than I do can answer that question for him. I appreciate that you think I would know the answer to that. That's actually a compliment of a sort. So thank you for that. Let's see here. Oh, speaking of Isaac Newton, he was born on Woolsthorpe by Colsterworth. Guess what country that is? We were watching a television series, Shakespeare and Hathaway, the other day, and was Amy, I think you mentioned, where was Shakespeare born? And we look it up, and he was born on Stratford-on-Avon.
Upon Avon, yes.
Yeah, and you don't have place names like that in the United States. You just don't have Birmingham on Detroit. Yeah, it's just so obviously in England there. It's also World Braille Day. Braille, Louis Braille, actually he didn't invent raised letters for the blind, he codified it. There was an earlier version called night writing by a man named Charles Barbier, and Louis Braille took that, turned it into something that could be made universal. Made the cells into 6-dot cells that were smaller, so you could decipher each letter with just one finger. Very, very cool, and that is why it is also World Braille Day. And, I admire the ability of blind people to learn to read again using Braille, but it also makes me grateful for my eyes. A day like this makes me think, oh my God, I wear eyeglasses, and, my eyes in theory could be better, but my God. I can see everything. I can see colors. I can see pretty girls. I can see the world. And that is something not to be taken for granted.
Yeah. I'm grateful for all of my 5 senses. So
yeah. And that kind of gratitude doesn't have to be gratitude to a supernatural being or something parametaphysical. No, it's just a glad to be alive kind of thing. And it makes you realize you should never take anything you've got, even the things that nobody had to pay for granted.
Oh, and with regard to the sense of sight, I want to give a shout out and a grateful shout out to Linda Cordair, who is in the chat.
Oh, excellent.
Cordair.com, Quaint Cordair Fine Art. And I'm grateful to go to her website and look at all of the. There's a lot of John Wass cliches or prints, limited edition prints that are fairly reasonable. And I know that if you follow her, she has a lot of little deals and such, or free shipping, or I think that was the last one I saw. I don't know if that's still in effect or not, but yeah, we actually still have our professor of epistemology print, John Wass print with the cat, and on the bookshelf with the Ayn Rand books on it. So adorable. And it's a great, oh my gosh, I'm so happy we got it, and it was fairly affordable, and it looks wonderful framed. So cheers to you, Linda Cordair. And Quint.
Yes. And the reviews are coming in for part 3 of Idolatry, Quint Cordair's series. And
I haven't read it yet.
As you can imagine, the reviews are all positive. Yeah. I have not written a review yet because I haven't finished reading it yet. But according to the reviews, it is a must read. And that doesn't surprise me at all because I have read parts 1 and 2. And Linda put up a post earlier, and now I can't find it, that I wanted to mention. Well, I'll get back to that in a bit when I remember exactly what I wanted to say.
Yeah, Linda, if you're in the chat, just go ahead and read Robert's mind and go ahead and post that into Facebook again.
Oh, well, yes, obviously. And so, given that we're done with On This Date, I want to first make sure there's nothing in the chat that we need to respond to right away.
Well, it says, I think Christopher says, happy Fire Horse Year. And that, or Flaming Horse Year, something. Anyway, that's the Chinese Zodiac 2026 marks this rare and energetic time, bringing themes of passion, bold action, and ambition, with the new year starting around February 17th. All right.
Wow. Well, right. Cool.
The Fire Horse.
I don't care about Chinese Zodiac. No, these are just reminders. They remind you, if you are not as passionate as you want to be, if you are not enjoying your values as deeply as you could, silly things like zodiacs can remind you to do that. Okay, so I mentioned we get into the news. And we've been doing a segment called Robert and Amy Take on the News with our benevolent and sometimes whimsical take on what's going on around the world. This week, it's... I'm not going to say it's tough, because it's always tough. Until we get a new president, and maybe not even then, it's always going to be tough. But
yeah,
Harry S. Truman. I already mentioned LBJ, but HST. We don't call Harry S. Truman HST, even though we call Lyndon Baines Johnson LBJ. Harry Truman, the Korean War. Gets the United States into the Korean War, a war we have no business being in. Well, but we were going to save the North Koreans from invading South Korea, kinda, and we're gonna knock communism out of North Korea. Yeah, tell me how that went. LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, was of course the man behind our engagement in the Vietnam War, and of course, Richard Nixon took forever to end that and did it badly. Ronald Reagan. Did Ronald Reagan start any wars? Well, what about the Iran-Contra affair? What about Nicaragua? How about George H.W. Bush, the old George Bush? Well, the man behind Operation Desert Storm, the 1991 Gulf War. Of course, his kid, George W., started the war in Afghanistan, supposedly in response to 9/11, but you tell me if that really addressed that or not. Wait, I skipped one. Well, besides Gerald Ford, who was an accidental president, what about Bill Clinton? Bill Clinton didn't start any large-scale wars.
Well, there was a skirmish in Kosovo.
That's true. There was Bosnia and Kosovo.
Yeah.
Arguably we shouldn't have been involved in that. And there were some attacks in Afghanistan and Iraq. George W. Bush. Did Obama start any wars?
I'm sure he did. Oh, he killed Gaddafi. Didn't he?
Good on him.
in Libya.
I bring this up because even presidents...
And Osama bin Laden under his regime.
The point is, and they're bringing up the Grenada War under Reagan. The point is that presidents sometimes start wars. And the reasons they start the wars, and here's the thing, here's the point I want to make. The reasons why American presidents start wars is not because the United States gets attacked. Notice I left out FDR because, if you attack the United States, I'm not going to criticize an American president for going to war.
Yeah.
I might not even criticize an American president for military action as opposed to actually starting a war when U.S. assets overseas are attacked, because that's essentially attacking the United States. Private property, a little bit different an issue, and that makes it more complicated. My point is that what happened this week is not actually that new. Now, I've spoken out against it. I've spoken out against our president's decision to kidnap is the wrong word. Did I use the word kidnap? Capture President Maduro and his wife?
Yeah, his wife.
And the idea is he did it because Maduro is a criminal. He's actually an international drug lord type criminal guy.
He's a narco terrorist.
He's a narco terrorist. And maybe his wife too?
Let's pull some more stupid words out of our butts, says Donald Trump.
Hey, if you knew what narcotics are doing to people, well.
They're leaping out and going down people's throats. They're accosting you in a dark alley.
I mean, if you look at our war history, let's go with George W. Bush. In the Iraq War, let's see, 150,000, up to over 1 million deaths, including 100,000 civilians. Casualties and losses in the Iraqi security forces, 17,690. You're like, I don't care about the Iraqis. They were the bad guys. Who cares how many of them died? Okay, how many coalition forces died? 4,826. Yeah, but we had European allies. How many Americans died? 4,508. Now, you know the old quote that when one person dies, it's a tragedy. When 1 million people die, it's a statistic. But still, 4,500 Americans died in Iraq. And what was achieved? Is the government there any more friendly to the United States? Is it any more liberty-oriented? Is it any less Islamic? Okay, you don't have Saddam Hussein anymore, but he could have been knocked out, well, maybe the way that Trump is knocking out Maduro, one bit at a time. Point is, though I don't agree with wars, this last week is not really that new. Well, if you're as old as me, this last week is not really all that new.
It is a little bit new.
What is new?
The new part about it is that it all started with basically killing everybody on boats without really understanding who was on the boat, what was on the boat. Double tapping, which is double striking the boat, making sure everyone died on it so nobody could, live to tell the tale, I suppose. Yeah,
double tapping is not a good word. It sounds like double clicking. Like, it just sounds...
Yeah, so there was some very interesting context leading up to this that was very, very unusual and unconstitutional and, dare I say, criminal on the part of the United States. Completely disregarding due process. And I thought to myself, why didn't they just, kill Maduro and his wife, instead of bringing them here for a trial? Like, they actually respect due process. And then there's a gentleman named Walter Olson at Cato, who I see on Facebook, and he actually... it was so sad. I had to laugh out loud though. And he said, well, how long will it be before Donald Trump actually pardons Maduro and his wife? After all of this, I can see it.
Because he pardoned the last national leader who was a drug dealer?
From Honduras. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe Maduro will give him enough money for a pardon. Maybe a pay for pardon situation will be there. And it doesn't make a damn bit of sense what he's doing and how they're doing it. It's so shady. So many ways of shady.
Well, yes. And part of the challenge is that if you're not a fan of the president, and to say that I'm not a fan of the president would be an understatement, it's very difficult to look at the best case scenario. For example, it's hard not to think that while I don't believe this is the motive for the actions, it is a contributing motivation. The Epstein stuff is off the headlines again.
Yep. What
a distraction. But again, I don't think that's the reason why this happened. It's just icing on the cake.
Well, I wouldn't be able to say if that was a reason or not. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a reason.
I wouldn't be surprised. But again, It's not the reason. I know it's not the reason. It's just...
So it'd be very interesting what's going to happen next. When I first heard this was going down with Maduro, I thought, are they going to now ship him to CCOT? Wouldn't that be a hoot? Yeah. So I don't understand. There's no rhyme or reason. There's no consistency to due process and foreign policy to any of this. It doesn't make a damn bit of sense.
Going back a bit, Greg Lewis says, didn't Ronald Reagan pull a variation of the walls of Jericho with his east-west German wall? You know, it would be a good question to ask. What military engagements has the United States been involved in that actually had a good result? Because some of them did. Reagan, just by taking a strong stand in the Cold War, was able to not destroy Russia, or the Soviet Union, but to let it fall apart on its own. That's all it really required, was for us to take a firm stand. And similarly, the East German, West German divide. So that would be a good question. What military engagements have gone well? I know some think that Margaret Thatcher was successful with the Falkland Islands campaign. It certainly is why she gained the nickname the Iron Lady. So, not all military campaigns are suspect in that way.
Yeah, and I'll just say with regard to Reagan and his military campaigns in the 80s, being under the pretense of the war on drugs, that was, I would say, probably the most stupidest idea.
That's right.
That was so...
there was a lot of war on drugs in the 80s, wasn't there?
Yeah, and now we have it again. I mean, if they're bringing in Maduro as a narco-terrorist, the biggest, baddest drug dealer in the world, who must be prosecuted? Because of the war on drugs, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah, well, the short answer is you just stop making drugs illegal.
Yes.
Just legalize everything. But that's a whole discussion about how do you deal with the effects of that, of which there would be many.
Yeah, and there are a lot of really good models out there in Europe for how they actually deal with that. Legalize the drugs, just work with it in a medical situation.
Sorry, I asked about good wars, and they're good. Matthew and Greg are going back to the War of Independence. Yeah, I'm good with that one. I mean, I'm good with the actions that we've taken in defensive postures in war. There are people who've said, well, we shouldn't have gotten World War I. That could have been won without us. That may be true, but certainly World War II, we were fighting on the right side, we won, and the world was saved. So yeah, that's a good thing.
Yes.
I do believe. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I was just reading something and now I just lost it. So let me jump forward a bit, and then I will jump back to this topic of what's going on in the news.
Yeah.
Shameless self-promotion, and what are we listening to this week? I went back to the episode of Life on Earth, What Does That Look Like? And I'm using that to help put together my New Year's resolutions, which are still a work in progress. Mostly the usual stuff, but some of it's going to be personal, financial, career, and then, yeah, all the usual, fitness and travel and things.
Yeah.
So I'm asking myself, what would that look like? Not what would it look like to have a beach body or money in the bank or whatever the thing is, but what would the process of making that happen look like?
I have a thought, and it's something that I've been working on rehabilitating my knee, which I had an injury on, and it's getting better, and I'm doing all the right things. I could probably be doing more, but so I kind of got down on myself today about, gosh, Amy, you really should be doing more. You should have gone to the gym today. You should have done this and that. And then I thought to myself, how can I turn that around? How can I reframe that in my mind to get me more into a positive perspective on it, one that's pro-action and believing in myself and that I can do it? Is the question, what would it look like if I hadn't done any of what I've already done? What would it look like if I had done zero physical therapy, zero swimming, and all of this stuff? My leg would still be really hurting. And so just make it, so I'm thinking of like making it real to myself about, what my actions have actually accomplished so far. And that's going to motivate me and keep it in my mind to say, yes, if I keep doing this, it's going to get even better. So
it's a good perspective.
Yeah.
But I do recommend people use the tactic of what would that look like. When you visualize your goals, don't just visualize the end result. Ask yourself, well, if I do actually invest money or set money aside or do a budget or step up my fitness game, what will the hard parts of that look like or the boring parts of that look like? And what will I do when I face those challenges? What will that look like? So that you've already modeled it in your head, and do that in as much detail as you can. Essentially, rehearse before you hit the hard parts.
Yeah.
And then do what you rehearsed. It'll be that much easier to say, oh, yeah, I knew it was going to be like this. And and then I had to do this. And here's what I'm going to do. And okay, and then I'm going to do it. So yeah, if you haven't seen that video or that haven't considered that approach, the link to it is in the show notes. What does that look like? The other thing under listening or reading this week was Mark Conway Monroe's latest Facebook post. He put up a post called "The False Choice Between Caricature Individualism and Collectivism." And he talks about people put up a caricature of what individualism looks like.
Yeah.
For example, the lone wolf who refuses to work with anybody else or who works a daily grind. And he mentions the topic or the expression rugged individualism. And I have always hated that concept. It used to come up a lot in the 80s. Radio guys like Mark Scott and Rush Limbaugh would use it a lot. And to me, it was always both a ridiculous caricature of masculinity, a kind of braggadociousness. I'm not just an individualist, I'm a rugged individualist, because individualism is hard. And it's also a way to apologize in advance, as if to say, I'm not, a whim-worshipping hedonist who's just out for myself. No, I'm willing to sacrifice for individualism. No, rugged individualism is a terrible expression. And,
and it's one of those situations where rugged kind of means not just masculine, but physical. Like, and that kind of buys into the whole idea of, communism and unionism, the idea that, it's the people who have flexed their muscles, who have, engaged in some kind of manual labor that has actually built a company or built a building or built something. It's not the mind or the thought behind it. It's not the engineer. It's not the architect. It's not the CEO. It's the flexing of those muscles. And I think it also has that connotation to it. Individualism primarily and more fundamentally derives from your own independent thinking, your own individual reasoning. And so rugged individualism, doesn't make a lot of sense.
So I just want to read the paragraph that I wrote on that. The expression rugged individualism has been an annoyance since the 1980s, and the reason for it, the fear and hostility that most people, left and right across the spectrum, feel about individualism has led us to the present, in which, for example, today's MAGA intellectuals, if that's not an oxymoron, they regard community to be a primary value, and they associate individualism with hedonism and anti-nationalism. They would say anti-patriotism, leftism, and classical liberalism, which nowadays they condemn. So, yeah, it's candy-flavored poison, an expression like that. In the chat, Steve is asking about David Kelly's concept, unrugged individualism. I think I actually read the original essay, not the book that he eventually released, but his essay on it. And I'm not usually a fan of David Kelly, but it was good. He got it right. This idea that you say rugged in order to say, oh, I'm not an individualist, not like that. Yeah. But it's rugged, and so I'm paying my dues. I'm paying for my individualism. I'm sacrificing for my family, my community. No, rugged individualism is just a way to say, I apologize, I don't really mean individualism. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I think Greg might have a more charitable interpretation. He says it's the philosophy that individuals in society should expect little help from the state in their lives, and that the majority of success and prosperity should come from individuals working hard. I wish that was what and I think among better people, that is what they mean. But it just makes me that much more frustrated that they can't actually embrace individualism, that they have to do it cloaked in that, or clothed in that manner. So, super big kudos to Mark for posting that. I really appreciate it. There's a link in the show notes to Mark Conway Monroe's post on that.
Yeah, so Linda and I have been chatting back and forth in the chat. She was asking if you were thinking of the Quint Cordair toast, the little poem that he made. Is that what you were thinking of, referring back to earlier when you said you forgot?
No, but it is a winner, and you can actually order it as a graphic from Quint Cordair Fine Art at cordair.com. Yeah. No, actually, Linda, my only criticism of it is that it ends on a sour note. And I know the idea of your enemies in hell isn't a sour note to some people, but I'm more like John Galt, who said you should never think of pain or fear or enemies a moment longer than is necessary to fight them. So it's a great poem. I just wish that bit, even though it was dramatic, and I can see why he wanted to end it with the dramatic part, it should have been in the middle. It should have ended with more of the positives that the poem is actually about. Yeah, that's my only criticism.
Yeah, I get that.
But it's great, and people should order it. It's a great poem. It's a great graphic, and it's available at cordair.com.
Yeah, look it up, people. See what we're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, such good stuff. Jim's got a long comment here. If narco-terrorism, which is not terrorism at all in my view, is what Maduro is guilty of, then it is a matter for the U.S. Coast Guard to take care of, not any of the other four branches of the military. And he goes on with some detail. The point here it's not just that, because it includes, and the initial reason for the attack on Venezuela was Venezuela's selling of oil to sanctioned countries which under international law they are not allowed to send oil to. So yeah, you're right, but it's more than a drug thing. It's not just the narco-terrorism.
Yeah.
Every time our president does something like this, if you peel back the layers and ignore all of the vomitous nonsense that he puts out on Truth Social, there are actually legal reasons why he does and can get away with what he's doing, at least to some degree. So yeah, this one isn't just about the narco-terrorism. Otherwise, he would have put Maduro on a boat and then bombed the boat. So I shouldn't be irreverent about that, but at some point you can only laugh.
Yeah.
What else can you possibly say?
Yeah, and one other thing about this another angle on this is a lot of people are concerned, including some of the liberals, Well, there's this one historian named Heather Richardson something.
Cox.
Anyway, Cox. Thank you, Heather Richardson Cox. So yeah, and I think Robert Garmong actually brought this up as well on Facebook, which is the idea that if the U.S. can do this to Venezuela, is that going to morally bolster or encourage China doing this to Taiwan, and also morally give courage to Russia and what they're doing to Ukraine? That's a good point and something to look at. The idea that this is the first time that, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's kind of debatable, but it's one of those situations where this was brought about in such a manner that people say that there is precedent for it, but in some ways there isn't. So anyway, I'll let people hash that out.
Yeah, and again, I'm not going to build the full case for or against what happened this week. My biggest point, the main point I wanted to make was that, A, it's not unprecedented, not just legally, I'm not saying he had good reasons, but it's not unusual. It's not unusual for an American president to take these kinds of actions in these kinds of contexts. And the only reason for me to say that, because obviously that doesn't excuse to me any of the present actions of our president, but it is not, well, since we mentioned it's Michael Stipe's birthday, it is not the end of the world as we know it. And I want you to be able to say, well, kind of like Yaron Brook suggests, I'll listen to the news. Yeah, I'll get my news from Yaron Brook. Even that's probably too much for one day, except he has the virtue of saying positive things as well, and he's entertaining. And that's it. And then let it go. And not evade it. Just, you've spent exactly the right amount of attention on it. I have spent the right amount of attention on it doing my show notes today. I'm not even going to read you all of the things that I wrote and typed up. And let it go. And tomorrow something interesting may happen, and you'll find out about that, and you'll spend 5 minutes on that, and then let that go too. And the reason is, remember where we started. It's the year of selfishness. I think that you should be bragging about it if you are a podcaster, a social media person, if you have a Substack, if you just have friends on email, let them know. This is the year of selfishness, and I am going to meet the challenge. Absolutely. Okay, that was weird. You probably went ahead and let that through. Christopher Smith says, my mom had a thing for Tom Jones, the Tom Jones reference from earlier.
Yeah.
And YouTube held it.
Yeah, it did.
And asked us to approve it.
Yeah.
My mom had a thing for Tom Jones. How could YouTube possibly think, oh, I don't know. Maybe anytime somebody uses the expression, my mom, your mom. It used to be, when you would run the dozens with
your
somebody.
Your mom is so big.
Yeah.
How big is she? Yeah, I don't know. I've been watching it and letting it all through.
Yeah, that was really weird.
Yeah.
Sorry, I guess I'm easily distracted here. Yeah.
Squirrel. Yeah.
I really like Jim Ashley's idea, even though I know there's a bigger context to that idea of the Coast Guard handling these things instead. Things like the Coast Guard just seem so benevolent compared to everything else going on.
Yeah.
Even though, again, I'm sure the Coast Guard was part of what was, part of the military actions that happened. Anyway, let me leave that there because I wanted to leave that there and say now that we've got a handle on this and things are no worse than they were 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 months ago. Bad, but not end of the world bad. Oh, by the way, somebody mentions Harry Binswanger. If you're subscribed to the Harry Binswanger letter, HBL, listen to the Meeting of the Minds. He talked about the positive things he's expecting in the next year.
Oh, good. I need to listen to that. Send me the link.
Yes.
Yes.
I will do that. And the point is, there will be positive things this year. There will be an outrageous number of positive things this year. If you're already subscribed to Human Progress, the Cato group, Human Progress's Doomslayer, they published, and Yaron mentioned this, over 1,000 good things. Now, when Cato and Doomslayer publish 1,000 good things that happened over the last year, you got to take it with a grain of salt because they're, philosophically, they're better than most, but they're still mixed. And so they will say things where, animal rights are more respected now than they were in the past. And that's a mixed case. There's a real argument about animal cruelty, and is that an objective danger to people who are not animals, for example? Does it indicate some kind of psychosis that makes somebody an objective danger? So when you read the Doomslayer list of 1,000, it's like 1,400 good things that happened over the last year. Take some of them with a grain of salt, but it's still a staggering list. And the next year, if you look at the previous year, you realize those are all trend items, and things are just going to keep getting better. And then AI will destroy the world, except that if you're a subscriber to Robert Trzynski's Substack, and I'm not a paid subscriber, but you don't need that for this one, he explains that AI is not going to destroy the world.
No, really?
and I love the explanation. It's similar to what we've talked about on the show before.
I haven't read this yet, but I will. I am a paid subscriber, by the way, of Robert Trzynski's stuff.
I'm a little more pessimistic than he is about it, in the sense of, I think that it's more complicated than the answer he gives, but the answer he gives is compelling. He says, the reason why AI is not going to destroy the world or destroy us is because it has no reason to. And I know that the AI doomsayers, as opposed to the doomslayers, will say, well, no, because AI is going to require so much energy and space and resources that it will fight us for them. Well, except AI doesn't want anything. It doesn't need anything. It has no desires. It has no emotional mechanism. It has no pleasure pain mechanism. It has no motivation. Now, there's always a risk you can program artificial motivation, just like you can have artificial intelligence. And so a program can run amok. It can go haywire. But there's a limit to how far that can go as well. You can break an AI, but you can't become the creator of an AI in that way. So I get it, and I like it. I think that was pretty good. I think there's more to it, and I could kind of argue against a couple of the points that he makes. But the next year, AI is going to keep changing everything and keep making everything better. And a lot of us are going to have to retrain or refocus or change our focus or just keep doing what we're doing, but in different ways. But that's going to be amazing. The robotics side of it, automation is going to be amazing.
Please. I work in digital marketing, and it can be so tedious.
It's a wonder they still haven't automated the kind of stuff that you're doing over and over and over again.
I want AI to take my job. Please take my job, AI.
Yeah. Paul is on the Facebook side. He says, I can't wait for double-digit GDP. It's coming, and I don't know why it's taking so long. Other than that, for every improvement we're capable of, never underestimate the ability of the welfare state to squander all of it. If you think that's an exaggeration, go to usdebtclock.com.
Yes.
And think about what those numbers, those trillions of dollars that are not static but are growing at a staggering, what that actually means. Where is your flying car? I think it was the first episode I did of Life on Earth. Where's my flying car? And the answer is that, yes, things are getting better, but if it weren't for the state, things would be, and I mean the exaggerated welfare, not just welfare, but the regulating state, everything about government, except for those few things it does and should do right. We're being bled to death. So double-digit GDP is coming, and it's going to accelerate even faster than Donald J. Trump's ability to spend it all.
Yeah. I said one of my Facebook friends posted the comic.
Calvin and Hobbes?
Calvin and Hobbes comic. Where are the flying cars? And it goes on and on. You call this the future? Ha. And I said, well, all these, moon colonies and personal robots and zero gravity boots and all of this, well, they're found in the summer homes of politicians, and they're stillborn in the binders of regulations. That's where those exist. So
yeah,
that's That's where you'll find the flying cars. Yeah, it's awful. People are posting little sheep emojis on here.
Yeah, well, Christopher Smith mentioned Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? The old story there. And Philip K. Dick, yeah, it was the inspiration for Blade Runner.
Oh, yeah.
And then he says, I think counting sheep works because it rhymes with sleep. He says, I can't prove, of course you can't prove that. It's because it's not true, but very funny nonetheless. Incidentally, folks, it really does work pretty well that you just count backwards in your head from 300 by threes. I think I mentioned that once before.
Except I've done that so many times.
So many times you start automating it.
It completely memorized it.
And so you change it. You can change it to 400, which makes it actually really hard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because if you do it from 300, you always end up with numbers which the individual digits add up to a number divisible by 3. So you can check your stuff as you go. If you start with 400 and start doing, 397, 394, 391, 388, it's not as obvious, which is good if you're looking for something that is doable, but not too easily doable. That's why you can't count sheep 1, 2, 3, 4, because you'll think of other things at the same time, at least if you are a cognitive multitasker, like most of you are, because we tend to skew high on the IQ scale on 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir. I say that with zero evidence whatsoever, and humorously, because I always consider IQ to be kind of a joke. Yeah,
before we get back to the to our friends in the chat, we were supposed to be talking about the 80s today.
We were supposed to be talking about
the me generation.
80s. Well, the 80s reference was exactly that. Decade. The 80s was the me generation. And you're right, that ties in with what we're saying. We want 2026 to be a happy you year.
Yeah.
This is going to be your year. Now, we've said that before, and we'll always say, your best year yet. The point I want to make tonight is not only that, you need to start 2026 with a resolution to make this your best year, but also, and this is the hard part, you're going to have to live up to that. Unlike these people who want to put the word rugged in front of individualism, oh, thank you for that, Greg. I just got a background chat here from Greg who says that I duplicated the episode number when I set up this episode. It really threw us off taking that week off. So thank you for that. And I'll make sure that I fix that. This really is episode 292.
Wow.
And that speaks to the point I was about to make, which is being really excellent, which is a prerequisite of having a really excellent year, is hard. I guess you got to be rugged, man. No, you've got to be willing to be self-interested, selfish. And that's not just laying on the couch eating cheese doodles, as Andrew Bernstein would put it. No, you're going to have to live up to your own highest ideals.
Well, and also, we've talked about altruism before, and altruism basically leads you into a false sense of morality. If you just obey others or do what other people ask or work for somebody and not really question what you're doing or help your neighbor in a way that you're not even really acknowledging what you're doing or why you're doing it, it's only because they asked you. And you get into a routine like this. And I actually have a friend of mine, she's trying to sort through this in her life, and she's trying to become more selfish, more self-interested this year. And, and I think to myself, it's difficult. I warned her, I said, it's difficult to be selfish, to actually truly be selfish, because you need to start knowing yourself. You need to become a thinker. You need to think independently. You need to ask yourself and question why you're doing what you're doing. And that takes a lot of work. Being selfish takes a lot of work. And, so especially if you've been, kind of coasting by. And like I said, altruism is a false sense of security in terms of morality. It's a non-thinking kind of way to be. So be selfish, but make sure that you get to know yourself, be gentle with yourself, be kind to yourself, listen to yourself, record what you're doing, examine your life, curate your day, all of that. And it takes a lot of work. So there you are.
Yeah. As Peter Keating says to Katie in the Fountainhead, why do they tell us that it's difficult to sacrifice and it's easy to be selfish?
Yes.
It's the hardest thing in the world to do what you really want. And I don't have the quote in front of me, but I've quoted that so many times you will know the reference. Selfishness is a high bar to meet.
Yes.
Living up to your own ideals, your own values, practicing virtues in order to get what you really want out of life.
And do you mind if I do a little bit of political riffing or psychological political riffing?
Since you're asking instead of just doing it, I'm thinking this is risky, but no, you go for it. Your name's on the banner too.
All right. So this is something I'll probably be talking about more in the future. I'm always thinking about, why is it there are Ayn Rand fans out there who so very much support Donald Trump? Maybe even to say he's going to be one of the greatest presidents that has ever existed, things like that. Or because the left is so bad, or whatever it may be. And so I listened to The Bulwark, and one of their shows on YouTube. They were talking about this. What do you call it? It's basically when people come in and they ask them questions. Why do you support Trump? What do you get out of supporting Trump? And the question, it was a focus group that they did. So I kept thinking to myself, and it came to me, the question is, what is the psychological payoff for supporting Donald Trump right now? Or even 6 months ago? What are they really getting? And I listened to this transcript or these recordings of this focus group where people were talking about why they supported Trump. And they may have been asked, well, I don't, really completely agree with him on this, and I don't quite agree with him on that. And there were a number of very revealing answers that were not specific to any of the policies, but they were specific to what his personality, what his, dare I say, character of Donald Trump brings to their lives. And this relates back to how can you become selfish, really truly selfish? And how can you combat the altruist morality in your life? And what I kept hearing from this focus group, and I don't know if anybody has encountered this yet or thought of this yet, but they are getting the sense of kind of a pseudo self-esteem. And I think I've talked about that a little bit from Donald Trump, but it's more so that they feel like they have a very personal connection to him, and that he is out to get rid of all the guilt that the left has been trying to foist upon the population. All of the threats about cancel culture, about, you're going to dig up a tweet from 10 years ago and you're going to cancel so-and-so because of it. There have been a lot of really bad bullying tactics from the left, that trying to nudge people through guilt instead of nudging people or trying to convince people through reason and persuasion. They're trying to just guilt you into doing what they want you to do. And that was a big deal in the last 4 years, or last several years of this, with regard to woke, and that method of doing that. You really cannot stop people from being a racist by foisting guilt on them. Doesn't work, won't ever work, and all that will do is create a backlash. And I really think that there are a lot of really good people who supported Trump, or maybe even still support him, who have this feeling that's not articulated, that Trump goes up against those those horrible people who are trying to tell me that I'm a racist when I've been a good person all of my life, or threatening me, and trying to get me to feel guilty. And I hate that. I don't like that. And I don't know how to combat that. But I'm seeing in this president, in this Trump, that he is doing it, and he can do it, and he's going to save us from that. And I won't have to feel guilty. I don't have to feel insecure. I don't have to feel like I have to justify myself. And I really think that through that kind of psychological payoff that they're getting, they really feel committed to Donald Trump. And, and this is just kind of a theory at this point, but it all goes back to altruism and what selfishness really is. Selfishness is not getting people to sacrifice themselves to you. And that's the theme with Donald Trump. And they don't have the means, these supporters don't have the means to articulate, what even their morality consists of, or altruism, or what true selfishness is. And I think that I need to explore that a lot more deeper. And I think a lot of objectivist intellectuals need to explore that a little bit more and say, there's a psychological payoff that is still in effect going on here. And we need to put the words to it. And it has everything to do with altruism, and as opposed to rational egoism. So there's my psychological political riffing. Thank you.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of that. A lot of what you're describing, what they shared. I did look up that quote, which I will read again, just because, again, I want you to think about this in 2026 as you are being your own best selfish self. It's Peter Keating in The Fountainhead. Bit of a spoiler, but most of you have already read it. And if you haven't, this won't be too spoilery. It's Peter's talking to Katie, Catherine Halsey. But that's not my worst guilt. Katie, I wanted to marry you. It was the only thing I ever really wanted. And that's the sin that can't be forgiven. That I hadn't done what I wanted. It feels so dirty and pointless and monstrous as one feels about insanity, because there's no sense to it, no dignity, nothing but pain and wasted pain. Katie, why do they always teach us that it's easy and evil to do what we want and that we need discipline to restrain ourselves? It's the hardest thing in the world to do what we want. And it takes the greatest kind of courage. I mean, what we really want. As I wanted to marry you. Not as I want to sleep with some woman or get drunk or get my name in the papers. Those things, they're not even desires. They're things people do to escape from desires. Because it's such a big responsibility to really want something.
Oh my gosh, Peter Keating.
Yes. So as you go through 2026, and we're going to share with you all the things we're doing to make sure 2026 is beyond awesome, and we will be sharing a lot of the experiences with you too. As you go through 2026, live up to that. Bear that in mind. As you get out there and you live your own best life, live hard, not rugged, but rugged too, if that word works for you. And make it an outstanding year. Near the end of my show notes, I've got a podcast roll call. It's getting to be outrageous. There's so many objectivist podcasts out there. Ayn Rand Institute and Yaron Brook Show and Ayn Rand Center UK. Also the Capitalist Corner, though, and there's 5 different podcasts that Michael and Mark are doing associated with that. Rational Egoist and Self-Made Soul and the debates and Everyday Ethics and the Capitalist Corner. And now you've got Dan Norton who's doing his own show. You've still got the Secular Foxhole out there with Blair and Martin. Caitlin Lansing is doing The Atheist Nun. It's a charming podcast out there. Amanda Maxim started back up Happiest Man Alive last year and did 4 episodes of that. There is so much good stuff out there.
Oh, I've never heard of The Atheist Nun before.
Oh, you should listen to it. It's you might enjoy that. It's very quirky. She's very soft-spoken, kind of old-fashioned style, and charming. Give it a listen. It's on the podcast platforms. You will find that there. So much good stuff. We're going to keep putting stuff out there. We are going to take this journey with you, and I want you to share it with us. I love that we get this engagement in the chat. Thank you for that. Steve's always asking about films I've never seen. What did you think of the movie Boiler Room? If we ever get super chats going, people could pay us like they do Yor and Brooke to do movie reviews. I would not recommend that. Because, it's different tastes, different strokes and all that, different contexts. But definitely don't pay us to do music reviews. Those are the worst. I'm still surprised people ask your own. Tell me what you think of this song by, Megadeth. And right away as soon as they tell you.
Are you saying that nobody should pay us for music reviews? Because I think they should.
Really?
Oh, God, yeah.
Well,
oh, my gosh, yeah.
I'll tell you this. I think our reviews, we might be able to be a little more positive than... No, we won't.
We would definitely be more objective because, Robert, you know music theory. I have wonderful
it's true.
intellectual insights about everything.
I would be capable of giving a technical analysis.
Yes.
And maybe a little less of how it tickles my sense of life. That's a possibility.
Yeah. And we could talk about the lyrics more, and we can... if anybody wants to pay us for a music review, please pay us and go on PayPal or Patreon and let us know. We would love to do that. And Robert is an expert at music. That's all I'm going to say. Yes.
I know music theory. I do know quite a bit about music theory.
Yes.
I would not call myself a genius. My knowledge of classical music history leaves off at the community college level.
Oh, you can always do a little research. There's always research.
But on the technical and the oral side of things, yes, I do know my stuff.
So Ian, about the super chats, even though we have over 500 subscribers, we have to have more hours viewed, I think, right? Is that correct? So we have to do more shows, I think. That's really the solution to that.
Oh, well, there we go. Yeah, actually, that is actually what we need. We have enough subscribers now. We just need to get our view count, our hours up. And part of the challenge is our show is 5 minutes a week, or maybe more like an hour and a half a week, which I think is great, except to get the 3,000 hour average over 6 months time that you need on YouTube, we might have to think about ways to bump things up. I already know part of the solution there is I need to do more shorts. And that is on my to-do list for 2026.
Yes.
And Christopher Smith says, explain the overtone series. I bet you can. The overtone series is the reason why an even-tempered clavier is not really the solution to the fact that the overtone series tones are not, if they are equally spaced, then they don't quite fit the overtone series. And it's just a strange aspect of physics that the closest we can do to creating a series of octaves that work with the overtone series, that work with what happens when you cut a string in half, but in 2/3 or in different ratios. There are interesting videos out there. I'm the wrong guy to show you because I don't have the graphics and the examples to go with it. But yeah, sometimes look up even temperament or look up overtone series. And it's very interesting that you think music makes sense mathematically, and it does in a sense. An octave, a frequency is either twice or half the other frequency. A fifth is 2/3, et cetera, but it kind of falls apart at some point. Don't get me going on music theory. I'll
say even for that, Robert, I think that Christopher needs to go on PayPal and give us a nice 20 for that. Because that was a great answer.
It's not a bad answer, but the problem is I can tell in advance that Christopher already knows all of this, and he's just checking whether I do.
Well,
so yes.
We actually put some money in a tip jar.
Thank you. You could do that, actually. You go to paypal.com/Robert Nasir, and you could give us a tip.
Yes.
Or sign up monthly, patreon.com/Robert Nasir. Thank you to those of you who already do that. And I'll leave the music discussion with the fact that we actually have 2 acoustic pianos in our house.
Yes.
And one upstairs, one downstairs, and I have tuned both of them.
Yes. You are a tuner.
Ian wants to know, do you tune the B string on your guitar slightly flat? The answer is yes, unless I'm playing in E. But especially if I'm playing in D, and often if I'm playing in G, that is a great trick. Yeah, tune your B string slightly flat. But it depends. It depends on what key the song is in that you're playing.
See, Robert knows everything about music, guys, okay? This is the...
Ian says, I learned that trick from banjo players. If you play a lot of G form, yeah, the B is the furthest down. Yeah. And you've probably seen there are guitars out there where the flats are not straight. They're jagged. They're in different positions to make up for the guitar's inherent intonation issues, even if it's perfectly set up. So now, given my level of talent, which is not that high, it doesn't matter that much if I'm a little out of tune.
It's really good.
Who would notice? But if you go to Robert Nasir...
Don't be modest.
If you go to the Robert Nasir channel on YouTube, and usually you go live, you go, let me click the live tab for the 5-minute shows. But if you go to videos, the last 14 videos are of the gig that I played a few weeks ago.
Yes, and you were excellent on bass.
I was on bass, so
good.
Not my guitar like I was in the last band, but still it was fun.
They were a bunch of tasty punk songs, a lot of originals, but some covers as well.
Yeah, it's a punk rock show. You classical folks will be scandalized that an objectivist would stoop to playing punk rock, but God, it was a good time. That was really fun.
And I got to say, over on the Facebook chat, Paul Tierney is here, and he says, would you review a song called You Suffer by Napalm Death? Yeah, we would. Just put some money in the tip jar, and we will. Napalm Death, I'm familiar with them. 80s thrasher music and 90s thrasher music, all that.
Amy actually knows even more about punk rock than I do.
Yes, I do. And,
which is kind of amazing.
And alternative music,
absolutely
all throughout the 70s and 80s, and even a little bit of 90s. 2000s, I dropped off. I know a little bit about it, but not much. And
now, according to Google AI, the shortest song ever recorded is You Suffer by Napalm Death, clocking in at a mere 1.316 seconds. And it holds the Guinness World Record for brevity, featuring just 4 words, you suffer, but why? Well... Now I'm gonna have to look that one up.
You're giving your review here.
I haven't reviewed it yet. I haven't told you what I think because I haven't heard it yet. And obviously I'm going to put a lot of time into that because 1.316 seconds out of my day is pretty damn valuable. Ruby. Yeah. Okay. So folks, went a little long there, but you get me talking about music. We could do whole episodes on that. And it is on my to-do list for 2026 to do more musical adventures, including things that I will share as I did the December show that is out there for you to enjoy. Folks, thank you for joining us. Again, I'm not going to give you a lot of specifics about here's what you should do in 2026, other than take your values seriously, live for your own sake, make sure it's your best year yet. You will find a link in the show notes to some resources for that. Including all of those objectivist podcasts or Ayn Rand related podcasts that I mentioned. Incidentally, if there are any that you listen to that I've missed, let me know. For example, most of the ones that I listed are kind of associated with what I call mainstream objectivism, but there are other organizations out there I'm not involved with, and I may be missing something that's actually good out there. You let me know what you think. There's also a link to Mel Robbins' workbook for this year. Mel Robbins, the motivational, I don't even know what she is. She's very motivational. Her latest book, for example, the Let Them theory, in which she says, let people do what they're going to do. Don't make all of their stuff your stuff. And 1,000 different ways in which that can make your life a better life. She has a workbook for the year. I may be using that one. I've linked to it in the show notes. See if you find that useful. My point is, definitely make this your best year yet and take it seriously. Selfishness is not just eating cheese on the couch. Although that's a part of it. I don't want to...
Eating cheese puffs on the couch sounds...
I don't want to put down eating cheese puffs on the couch.
Perfectly moral in certain contexts to me.
And it actually goes along with my personal philosophy. my personal philosophy, which you may or may not want to adopt, which is the answer is always yes. So if, the question about cheese curls, Cheetos, cheese, whatever, nutritionally absent, delicious cheese things come up on the couch, well, here's a previous note that I have reproduced for this week. It's on a 3x3. I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but you should put up this Post-it note too. I'll be putting this on my bathroom mirror to remind me every morning when I brush my teeth. Pick one, and the first option is yes, and there are no other options. No, the answer is always yes. Always pick yes. Do the things, do more things, do all of the things. At the end of your life, you may regret something you've done. There might be one or two things you've done that you will actually regret, but I'll tell you this. At the end of your life, you will regret far, far more the things you didn't do than the things you did do. Say yes to everything.
And I'll say, if you can't say yes right now, you can say yes later, and you can schedule it for another time. And also, I should say that if none of you in our audience are actual altruists, but if you were, I would say start saying no, and then start asking yourself, what value is it to you to do whatever it is that you're being asked to do, and then you can go from there, and then you can start curating your days, and you can start living your best life.
Sorry, I missed a few chat items from Facebook because it wasn't scrolling properly. So, Narendra, I do appreciate your suggestions, and I may actually do some of that.
What?
Well, he says, for example, well, please do make music videos on music theory and political economy and technology and IT. Would love to learn. That would be fun. And I may have to find a format in which there's a good reason to do that, but it would be so much fun. And again, there will be more music. There will be more IT, actually. That we'll see how that all comes together. Folks, 2026 is going to be great. You are going to be great in 2026. We want to hear about it. We want to spend that time making it happen with you. So thank you for joining us. We'll be back next Sunday because I won't be sick again. You can't do that. I took 1 week off, and it really threw me off.
Yeah, me too.
I was getting ready for this show, and incidentally, rather than my usual terse condensation, here's the notes for today's show.
Which, by the way, warrants a good tip jar.
Oh, yeah.
Payment,
Go to robertdacer.com, scroll to the very bottom, go to Patreon, and join us. Join us as a patron. I think we lost one patron this month. Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of our $5 patrons. And some of you out there are saying, well, $5 isn't a lot of money to lose. But you know what? $5 is a lot of money to lose because it's not just $5. It's one person saying, I want to throw these guys a couple dollars every month. And that means a lot to me. Every one of you who are patrons of the show, thank you for that. And with that said, I think all that is left is for us to wish you all of the joy, all of the success, all of the flourishing. I don't know, that word has kind of fallen out of favor lately, but I'm still good with it. All of the flourishing that you so richly deserve. How do I know that you deserve it? Well, we just talked about it, because you take your values seriously. You are willing to be selfish, and that doesn't always come easy, but you're willing to do that. I know you are. You wouldn't be listening to, watching, enjoying a show like this if you weren't one of those good people. And I know you are. And that is why, on top of everything else, and we'll tell you this next week, we'll tell you the week after that, and we're not going to stop telling you because it's true, we wish you love.